A Tab's Story, Chapter 1, The Legend. The legend started off like any other legend. Peace, calmness, and then war would break out. Dead versus good. Evil versus good. Yin versus yang. This war broke out centuries ago. Reaper versus God. Reaper versus legend. Of course, we all know about the Reaper, we've all seen it, but we've never seen the legend of the good. Of course, the legend ends with the Reaper and his army vanished in a book. But when one story ends, another one begins. One day, a little farmer's boy went out to get some bread for his family, for his mom, grandpa, brothers, and sisters. He was the one. He thought that he was saving them, of course, by bringing it to them. But on his way back home, again, he wasn't the richest. So he was bullied out in the streets. Other peasants would gather around and beat him, almost halfly killing him. He would always come back home with a bruise, and his mom would say, "What happened, darling?" And he was afraid that if he said anything, then he would just get even more hurt. So he said, "Nothing, just tripped and fell, it's all." But of course she knew that was a lie. But she would understand if he didn't want to talk about it. One day, when he was going to the mill, in a dark alleyway, he met someone, a wizard. This wizard wanted him to follow. He wanted him to follow him. So then he did. The wizard said, "If you help me, I'll help you and your family." So then he asked him to take care of this crystal. He said it was more safe with you than me. A couple months passed, and then of course, something bad had to happen. "Something bad always happens to me," he said. The poor little miller boy said. "Why me?" The crystal was stolen by a bunch of peasants who again ganged up on him. Of course, he did find a way to get it back, but it cost him a lot of money, almost all of it. He only had $20 to his name. Luckily, that was enough to get the crystal back. When the wizard came back, he asked, "Did you protect the crystal like I promised?" "I tried, but it was stolen. I got it back, though." He said, "Good. I knew this was going to happen. And I knew that you'll do anything to sacrifice and I know you'll do anything to sacrifice to help your family. So, in return, I promise I'll help your family." The wizard gave the poor little miller boy a book. The miller boy was confused. He looked at the wizard, a little annoyed. "You promised you would help my family. Now give me a fairy tale book." "Ah," the wizard said, "but this isn't any ordinary book. This is a book that can cast any wishes that you wish. Just don't turn it to page 6. And don't read the spell in it." Of course, he said, "I promised," and then the wizard was vanished, like a fish going back into the water, never to be seen again. When the poor little miller boy went back into his room, he was morbidly curious. Why not page 6? What was so important? But he knew that the wizard had to have been right. But why? He felt his curiosity overflowing him. It took about a month for him to decide to read what was on page 6. He didn't for the longest time. He read other ones, and it looks like the spells work. He had enough money to give his family food, enough to last a lifetime. Of course, by a lifetime, he meant he would just read the book over and over again. Because, again, he didn't like stealing money, but he also didn't like to lie. But he knew his one weakness was his family and his curiosity. He knew that the curiosity killed the cat, but honestly, he just had to know. He knew that he might die any day by the peasants bullying him, and he didn't want to die not knowing what page 6 would be. So he thought, I'll just take a quick peek at it. It wouldn't hurt. He went back to his room, opened the book, page 1, 2, 3, 5. The next page would be 6. He felt his heart beat. Was he doing the right thing? Could he actually do this? Was the world going to end if he did? He didn't know. He was too scared to do it and to not do it. His mind was confused. And then he thought, what's life without a little adventure? That's what his dad would always say before he died. So he opened it to page 6 and read the words, old friend, did you learn your ways? Please come back and teach me what you thought back then. Not really the rhymiest poem, but it was actually pretty nice. And then, in the corner of his eye, a dark figure appeared. Its skin was pale as bone. It had a sharp scythe, sharper than the harvester. And his eyes were still the goofy, googly eyes that every other person had, but they looked angry. He had a hood and a cloak. He could float. He was tall. And he had 3 tentacles behind him. You're the mythical Reaper I've been hearing about. Yes, the Reaper said in a very whispery voice. And I'm here to make all your dreams come true. This whispery voice turned into a creepy but trustful voice. I have no idea why, but I kind of trust it, the Miller boy thought. I didn't know why, though. It was a weird thought, but he did. Why don't you help me so I can help you even more? There are lies that you don't know about, you little Miller boy. All things that you would only dream of knowing. Lies that you would only dream of solving. The Miller boy didn't like lies. He thought whoever did it would be cursed for all eternity. At least that's what his dad said. The Reaper did remind him a lot of his dad. He was tall, but he knew for a fact it wasn't him. Because he said, Dad, is it you? And then the Reaper said, of course not. I don't have a son. I do have a daughter, though. And I think I know who the daughter was, but I don't like jumping to conclusions, the little Miller boy thought. The Reaper sighed. Anyways, listen. In order for you to help me, I am nothing but a figure of imagination, basically. But first, I need to show that you can trust me. Then he pointed to a spell. The spell that said, hands. The spell read out, hands, protect me with all your might. From melee, from range, from all things bright. And then shadows of hands started appearing around the poor little Miller boy. He looked into the mirror. His eyes, instead of a nice blue, googly eye color, then turned into a dark, orange with some white around it. He didn't understand fully what was going on, but he felt powerful. He felt like nothing can beat him. He looked back at the dark cloaked figure, the Reaper, if you will. He pointed to another spell. He read it out. The army of the dead rise again, for you shall know the power of the dark. And then a rumble started to come. Like an earthquake? No, that wasn't possible. We haven't had an earthquake in so long. He looked out his poor little window and saw this army of skeletons. The Reaper looked over his shoulder. Beautiful sight, isn't it? He held out his hand. The little Miller boy touched it. And finally, the Miller boy didn't feel scared. He felt safe. In fact, he didn't feel like no Miller boy anymore. He would now be known as the Dark Peasant.